Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Clarity, Preventing Substance Misuse. I'm your host, Hannah Gries.
And I'm Sophie Streit. Today we have a very special episode lined up for you all. We're excited to be joined by two guests who play important roles in addressing substance use disorders.
Joining us today is Tracy Henning and Andrea Nielsen, two professionals who worked very closely together. Tracy, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure, I'm Tracy Henning, and I am the Treatment Court Coordinator for Faribault, Martin, Jackson, and Watonwan counties, and I also coordinate the Faribault, Martin, Jackson Family Dependency Treatment Court.
And Andrea, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your role?
Yes, my name is Andrea Nielsen. I am an alcohol and drug counselor with Fountain Centers here in Fairmont. I too sit in on the Faribault, Martin, Jackson County Treatment Court and Family Dependency Treatment Court.
Thank you both for joining us today. It's clear that you are making a difference in the life of many people. We are excited to learn more about your work.
Tracy, could you explain what drug court is and how it operates within the legal system?
Sure. So drug court is now called treatment court, and treatment court is a long-term intensive collaboration between treatment programming and court supervision, and it involves frequent court appearances, drug testing, long-term treatment programming, and case management to support positive life changes. The program is a minimum of 18 months long, and participants have court every other week. They are required to actively participate in treatment, address their mental health issues, do frequent drug testing, and obtain employment. They are also required to get their driver's license and their GED if they did not graduate high school. And so since we have court every other week, we have a team of professionals that includes the judge, prosecuting attorneys and defense attorney, treatment provider, which is Andrea, and probation, law enforcement, and then myself, and mental health, and we meet to review each participant's progress with the requirements, and this is a collaborative team effort. So we all work together to support all the participants in their long-term changes.
Andrea, can you provide an overview of what Fountain Centers is and the services it offers to individuals struggling with substance use disorders?
Absolutely. So Fountain Centers is through Mayo Clinic Health Systems. We have 7 total sites across southwest Minnesota and then southeast Minnesota. So that includes Fairmont, Albert Lea, Austin, Rochester, Owatonna, Mankato, and Faribault. All of our sites offer adult outpatient substance use treatment. In Albert Lea, we offer a residential program where they go there and live there for 28 days and go through residential treatment. And then our Rochester location provides adolescent substance use treatment. And then all of our sites also go through was peer recovery support, where they talk with patients throughout treatment and then following treatment to help support and with resources.
And what is the role of addiction treatment providers in supporting individuals involved in drug court programs?
Fountain Centers provides support offered through group and individual services to those in drug court. We also provide a group called Criminal Conduct and Substance Abuse Treatment that looks at the connection between their addiction and then the criminal behaviors, which leads to treatment court.
Andrea, could you talk about your approach to addiction treatments and how it works with the goals of drug court programs?
Absolutely. So my approach is patient-centered, and I refer to them as patients as through Mayo Clinic with Fountain Centers. And so we're working with them with where they're at within their addiction and acceptance of addiction to the disease of it, and then working towards their goals in sobriety and recovery and what that's going to look like. I also utilize motivational interviewing strategies, which empowers the patient on positive changes that they're making for themselves and that support their recovery as well.
Tracy, from your perspective running the drug court, how important is collaboration with addiction treatment providers in ensuring the success of patients?
Great question. So this collaboration is vital to our program. So again, we would not have treatment court without treatment. It goes hand in hand, and so having court every other week really helps us to address any concerns with the participants right away, and we can often tie those concerns or those struggles that they're having in with treatment. So to bring Andrea in and say, this is the concerns we're seeing, how can we address this to help them overcome them? And so we can also then praise accomplishments right away too, especially those happening in treatment. And by praising those accomplishments and that positive reinforcement, it really helps participants build that confidence to maintain sobriety and transition into long-term recovery.
Andrea, what strategies have worked well with helping individuals with chemical dependence go through drug court?
That's great. So being an advocate for them and bringing forth changes that they're making that may be deeper than what is seen by others that are involved in treatment court or even involved as far as referrals that they have. Being a listener, an ear for them for what they may be struggling with or frustrated, and help them work through that and using their coping skills that they've gained.
Tracy, can you talk about any problems you faced trying to bring addiction treatment services to those involved in drug courts and how you've dealt with them?
So thankfully, Fountain Centers has been in operation since before our treatment court even started. So it's great to have that vital program in our community. And oftentimes they are able to get our participants in right away. So it's kind of an expedited process. So that collaboration with them is really important. So being in a rural community, though, the biggest struggle that I see is just transportation. We do help participants set up insurance rides if that's available to them to get them to treatment. And we're lucky that we can give them tokens for the transit system that runs between Martin County and Faribault County. But unfortunately, there is no transit system that runs between Martin County and Jackson County. So for those participants, they do have to find transportation on their own to get to treatment and to court. So really that transportation piece and being in a rural community is probably one of the biggest concerns that we are constantly struggling with.
Tracy, from what you've seen, how does having an addiction treatment providers involved affect whether people in drug court end up in trouble with the law again?
So research has shown that the longer participant stays engaged in treatment programming, the more successful they will be. So even if a participant has completed treatment, if they're struggling and they're still in our program, we can link them right back in with Andrea. Say, hey, we need you to have a session with her, talk about it, link them right back in to get that extra help that they might need. What we have seen, though, is from those who have graduated our program, having that connection with Andrea and with Fountain Centers as a whole, all the staff at Fountain Centers really, they're able to get help faster and not fall as far down as they did prior to being in drug court. So they're aware of the resources and have made those connections, making it easier for them to reach out for help.
Andrea, why is it important to create treatment plans that are specific to each person's need? When are they going through drug court?
So treatment needs to be patient-centered based off of goals that they're working towards, because each person is so different on what they're needing in their recovery and what they're needing to address. And they work on these goals throughout their treatment. So those can include mental health, building a support network, employment, housing, transportation, and sometimes family relationships too. So it's really important to focus on what their goals are to help them be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea, what are some of the common misconceptions or stigmas surrounding addiction treatments, and how do you work to overcome them?
That is a great question because it can be very common. So I actually brought this question to my patients and to those that are participating in treatment court as well. So they broke it down into stigma and misconceptions on addiction. And so some discussed that addiction does not judge anyone. It doesn't care about your race, gender, socioeconomic status, or other factors that go into that. Where some also discussed a misconception of a quote-unquote typical addict. And then what they may appear as. So others shared their misconception on what treatment is, whether attending on their own or if they're court-ordered, whereas through treatment court, they are court-ordered to go through with treatment. And so there is the change that we talk about based off of that individual treatment planning of what the motivation is to have that come internal rather than being told they need to follow through with this. So then it does change, and they want to make those changes themselves.
Tracy, could you share any success stories or outcomes that came from the drug court?
Sure. So, we have several participants who have never graduated high school, and through our program they were able to earn their GEDs, which they never thought that they could do. So seeing someone who's 42 years old pass the test to earn their GED, that's a huge accomplishment. And you can see that they are also proud of themselves for making sure that they're attending the classes, and they might have failed one or two or more times, but they keep plugging away and they finally earn it. Also with driver's license, we do live in a rural community, and like I said, we do have transportation issues. It's hard to live in a rural community and not have a license. You really kind of need that as an adult to get from point A to point B without having to rely on other people. We've had graduates who have held full-time jobs for the first time in their life. So they might be 30, 40, 50 years old, and they've never held a full-time job in all of those years. And so now they can see what a positive benefit that is, and they hold jobs, they become supervisors, managers. We even had one who's a business owner who continues to support our program. So it's really neat that they're giving back to the community in those ways. Another thing that's hard to describe, but you can kind of see the change click, if you want to call it, in a participant when they finally realize that they're capable of this change and all the positives associated with it. So, it's hard to describe how we know that, but we can just see it. There's a person I could bet you right now, and Andrea would agree that yes, we can see that she has made that click, that change, and because of that, she's doing more community supports and engagement. She's volunteering. She continues to volunteer, not because we're making her, but because she truly sees a benefit in it. And so that change is one of the biggest changes, because that's when they realize I have a community to support me, and I can give back to that community as well, which is what we hope everybody as an adult or even a kid does in their own community, in school and stuff. But personally for me, one of the biggest successes is just to see those participants who are parents, who now have their children back in their lives. They've been reunified, and they're not just only reunified with their kids, but they are now engaged in extra supports in the community. So whether that means attending school functions, band, choir, robotic competitions at the school, having their kids enrolled in sports or community ed activities for the first time, just seeing them, because the more supports that they have in the community, the longer they are going to maintain their recovery. And so that's just a huge piece.
Andrea, how do you help people in drug court learn to avoid going back to using drugs, and how do you use the 12-step program to do that?
Thank you. So Tracy kind of mentioned it, like using the supports and the resources within the community is a vital piece. Treatment is one aspect, and it's temporary most of the time. And so we encourage patients to build a foundation outside of treatment to support them. This can include attending community support meetings like AA, NA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, those kinds of things that are out there. Having a sponsor, having an appointment, volunteering, going to recovery events, then also continue to address and manage other factors such as mental health, physical health, medication compliance of taking medications, and then just utilizing their supports and the relapse prevention strategies that they learned while they were in treatment and treatment court.
Tracy, why do you think it's important for addiction treatment providers to help with the personal reasons that cause people to turn to drugs when they're part of drug court?
So if our participants are not addressing those situations, then they are not learning how to move on, really. They just stay stuck in that cycle of just continuing to use and not being able to overcome it. And so treatment is just, like Andrea said, a small piece of the puzzle. It gets them started, but really it's the participants' own investment and other supports and services that are going to keep them moving in a positive direction. It's really easy for us on the outside to say, oh, well, if this person just does A, B, C, D, they're going to be successful. They just need to do those things. And that's just so easy if we try to tell them what they need to do. But really, what is so great about the treatment providers that we work with, and especially Andrea, is that they're the ones that work with our participants, and they get the participants to come to those realizations on their own. So instead of us telling them, well, you need to do this, and then this, and then this, Andrea is working with them using motivational interviewing to get them to come to those realizations all on their own. And then when they do that, they understand that this is why we need to do this differently. And it's really through that relationship that they build with Andrea and the other treatment providers.
And Tracy, in what other ways do you see the relationship between drug court and addiction treatment providers changing in the future to better serve people struggling with substance use disorders?
I really don't see lots of changes that need to happen or are going to happen. Obviously, what we need to continue to work on is to ensure that we have treatment providers in our rural communities, so everyone has access to that service when they need it. There are lots of treatment providers that have closed in the past couple of years in rural communities, so it's easy for someone in the cities or Mankato to say, oh, I need treatment. I'm going to call up these 3 places and have the pick of whatever one I want. We don't have that here. And like I said about transportation, Mankato's an hour away. So it is vital that we can do whatever we need to do to make sure that Fountain Center stays in our community, because there's not a treatment center in Jackson County. There's not a treatment center in Faribault County. There's not a treatment center in Watonwan County. So really, they are our only access to services in our area. So
I think it's really cool that you're building that relationship with your participants and able to help them do this. Because I also personally have a friend who had to go through that with a parent and was able to get them back. So
good.
Good.
Yes. Thank you.
That's the end of our episode today. Thank you to Tracy Henning and Andrea Nielsen for sharing some information about drug court with us.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more discussions like this one.
Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and stay safe.